Hello, people of the internet, it's Amanda, and if you're new here on my channel, I usually talk about Japanese movies, dramas, entertainment. Sometimes I tap into other Asian pop culture topics as well, and one of my favorite things to talk about here on my channel is Number I. I'm such a huge fan of the group, and after what feels like forever, they finally dropped a new music video, so I'm super excited to talk about that in today's video. Now, the song itself, Mikakunin Ryoiki, or U.M.A, is not exactly new to fans simply because I think a month before this music video dropped, they already kind of like teased the song because they're doing a challenge slash campaign around it. And then previously, they also performed the entire song along with a choreography on CBTV. So it's interesting to me because they've done this in other songs before. Either they teased it prior or they performed it prior in a music show before the music video drops. And I think it really helps because, again, with this new system that they're doing, it's kind of like unexpected how they're promoting songs. But at the same time, because their current music videos are very like sensory, like kind of like a sensory overload type of experience, breaking it down into parts kind of like allows viewers to dissect it a lot easier, consume it a lot easier, at least for fans. But obviously, like for first-time viewers of their work, especially if this is kind of like the intro to their new song and there's a lack of awareness in terms of the campaign that they're running or the performance on CCTV and all those things, I feel like it would definitely come off as a trippy music video, which I think is also the intent for this. And even as a fan who's, again, who's aware of the campaign that's running and saw the choreography, which I absolutely love, by the way, the music video in itself was also something that I find very overwhelming in a good way and also stimulating just visually. And that's the reason why I usually don't kind of like create first impression reaction videos for music videos in general, not just Number I's, but I love kind of like just brainstorming and thinking about, you know, the elements in a music video that I would really want to highlight or pinpoint or whatever before I make these, just so my videos would make a lot more sense and have a lot more kind of like value as a fellow fan. So yeah, if you enjoy these types of things, then please keep on watching. So I really like this kind of like in-flight talk through in the intro. I really love these costumes. Can you just focus on this outfits a little bit? So they talk about, like, I saw the Oricon article where it was explained that the concept for the music video is basically a metaphor for like the human body, and that is incorporated in both the concept of music video and the choreography, like the way that they do this. And it's interesting because once you get that into your consciousness, then you notice more details in the music video. It kind of like expresses how like the human body has its own kind of like expanse and beauty, but also its not so good parts. And it's kind of like this concept of taking in what's good and also kind of like creating something good out of it, which is, you know, like how our digestion is like. And so specifically for this outfit, let me go back a little bit. So again, there's a uvula. And then for this outfit, it's not just like outfits in itself. Like if you look closely, there are details that kind of like play into food or just the colors in itself. Later, like even which shows necklace right here, and when we zoom into his rings, like there's like gummy bears or whatever, and at first it just seems like a very colorful representation of, you know, just a playfulness to the music video. But then at the same time, like if you take into the concept of digestion, of food, of coming into the body, then more of the elements come into hyper focus, and I really like that. But it's just not that. Like these set of outfits are really, really cute. I love the kind of like the bedazzled freckles on show stickers on Kishi. Just everything about these colors still kind of like really fit them really well as well in terms of like the choices. So yeah. And again, it's very, very clear in terms of their like opening the mouth and also kind of like just taking in, you know, digesting the food and everything. And then they get introduced to these characters, which are kind of like the person in the narrative. They're the ones who are kind of like consuming the food, and they're just living their life really, really fun. And again, after learning about, you know, the concept that went into the video, it's easier to understand that, you know, this is kind of like an idealistic kind of life. Again, what you consume also contributes to what you create. I am kind of like annoyed at this part because it is upside down, but you can literally still see that show as a good looking folk. Also, Jin is so pretty in this music video. Again, I've talked about this in previous videos. Jin has this kind of like glow etherealness to him lately, specifically in this music video as well. And then the choreo is just so good. Let me just go back a little bit here. This part right here, so good. And the lyrics in itself is also something very interesting because again, the concept is, you know, Mikakunin Ryoiki, or uncharted territory. And I've talked about this with my friend Elle over on Twitter, where she said that there's this kind of like Japanglish term, unidentified mysterious animal, or U.M.A, which I think is their version of, since this is their first kind of like Japanese titled song, but there's this awareness that foreign audiences are also watching and kind of like reacting to their content or whatever. And so they added U.M.A in itself as well as kind of like an easier way for people to refer to their song or their music video as, which I think is very smart, by the way. But in this context, it seems like, you know, unidentified mysterious area, U.M.A, but just generally speaking, in the translation that they use in the video as well, it's uncharted territory. So again, even the lyrics in itself speaks for, you know, how it is kind of like daunting to jump into uncharted territory, but at the same time, there's just so much adventure that comes into it. And as long as, you know, like they're taking us for the ride, us fans, and also just generally about fans and how it is like jumping into new experiences, it shouldn't necessarily have to be like completely scary, but it's something that is to be welcomed as well. And I just really, really enjoy that type of message from the Mirai, because again, with their music, there is an aggression in terms of the sounds that they're using, because it's very much leaning into hip-hop or rock. But the lyricism in itself still remains grounded to the message that they've been sending across since their debut single, Goat. So I just find that really interesting, that they're not really diverting into the level of aggression that is more abrasive, but rather it's still very much inspirational in its intent. And I now understand why they didn't choose this kind of like first verse for the challenge, because this has a lot more kind of like complex choreography in it. I really love this shot a lot. Again, this is a metaphor for, like food digestion coming in, but again, also exploring the human body as its own kind of like universe. And this shot right here is just so pretty. Like for some reason, especially with the superhero movies coming out lately, this particular shot has been used a lot by directors in general. And I know, like, there's some times where it's actually well executed, but for this one as well, like, I think it's not exactly new that they come up with kind of like not really like a fisheye effect, but also that kind of like play in terms of the camera depth. So again, this isn't exactly jarring. This is just something that is familiar that I've seen as a technique from recent directors doing superhero movies, and specifically in flight scenes. So I don't know, that's just kind of like an interesting detail coming from like a filming perspective. I really love their plain colors too. And again, I love the play in terms of the camera work here. This so cute. This is so funny because there are some parts here that I feel like, and I think that's something that I've always liked about Number Eye's music videos. They don't take themselves too seriously, in a sense that their music videos aren't just one thing. Usually it becomes very campy. Like for example, with Bon, we even have like skits happening in there. With this one, like they're really gone all out with these like caricaturish characters, and kind of like just a concept of like using digestion as a metaphor. And again, it borderlines on, sometimes like it can be a bit too much, but because it stays within like this certain limit of balancing overwhelming elements and then crisp choreography, something that ties it back together into the music aspect of it. I think that's always been the genius of their music videos, is because it's really overly stimulating, but when you think they're going too far with something in terms of just the elements or the storytelling or kind of like just a characterization of it all, they get something to kind of like pull it back, and then it brings you back to Number Eye's focus is again their music and their dancing, and they really know, like they've been really playing into that element for a while now. I think the best example of that is again with just God Eye recently, where you feel like they've been playing into the kind of like artistic elements of the video because of kind of like the reverse play type of thing and all these other things, but they immediately reel you in and kind of like put a stop and then play into the choreography, and then they go back to it. So it's always kind of like push, 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 and then pull back at just the right moments. And I think this really plays well into this music video as well. I'm so in love with the choreography of this song. Now, the chorus in itself, when I first heard it, it reminded me so much of Creva's Mikakunin Ryoiki, which is, weirdly enough, the song that Sho loved, that inspired them to kind of like reach out to Creva to collaborate with for Ichiban before, back when they were still in King and Prince. And when I heard the lyrics of this for the first time, or at least the chorus, the way that it's being played out, I'm not sure if there was an intentional reference to that, or even just the kind of like even the melody in itself is kind of like familiar, but like playing it as a whole, again, this is its own unique song. I just wanted to point that little detail out, that it definitely reminded me of Kami no Ryoiki, not just because of the phrasing in itself, but because of the sound. So yeah, it felt oddly familiar, but at the same time unique in its own effect. Jin, please. This choreo fits Jin so well. Like Jin being the center for this particular part, even in the kind of like the teaser or the challenge videos that they've released for this. I don't know why, but it just feels so like it just suits Jin so well, like his vibe. But yeah. These jackets, so interesting, the way that it zips up all the way with the eye holes and everything. Again, it gives this music video this alienistic feel. And what's interesting about this is I really thought, because they're leaning into the alien aspect of, you know, promoting it, like the emojis and everything like that, I thought that it was gonna be an alien concept, because again, uncharted territory, the way that we usually refer to UFOs and all that. But they kind of like flip the switch on that. It's not an alien story. But in a sense, that's how food is when it comes to us. Like, these are foreign bodies coming into our system, and we kind of like process it and it becomes our own. So in a way, it still kind of like plays into that concept, which again, I'm not sure if it's intentional or if it's just something that kind of like wrap this entire thing up, but it's kind of like an interesting thing to think about. I'm sorry, but this uvula is now my favorite number I character. I really love this part. I am so curious as to how they shot this, simply because it really feels like they're floating, and I feel like either they're on wires or something. But amazing core strength to these three for being able to do this. Like, when it comes to film, there are ways when you kind of like feel like the wire is there. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but like in flying scenes, for example, there are like certain moments when you just know and feel that the wire is there based off of the stance of the person. But, and that's why it requires a lot of training. But for this one, there's just something so interesting about the way they're moving, so kind of like flowy in this, that makes it believable. And so I'm really curious as to like how they did this. And at the same time, they just look so pretty in this particular shot. And also, I just want to point out, I really love the changing aspect ratios of the shots. Like, for example, here, okay, I know that we're kind of like we're playing back and forth. I'm so sorry. Right. Again, with this kind of like shot, the backtrack vocals is also very interesting for this part. I really love this part. I just generally love the choreography of this song a lot. And then they've been fleshed out. And again, like there. So as you can see, there is a change in terms of the aspect ratio from this to this, which is a bit more like 4:3. But again, even if that's the case, they didn't play it off as similar to God Eye, where the screen is 4:3, but it's filmed in kind of like a film, like a traditional film style, gritty, like with a gritty, grainy effect to it. This one is all like just very crisp, which plays into the visual aspect of the music video just generally. And even if, so yeah. And can I just say, I really like how, you know how it is with the, again, the music video when it comes to digestion and the way that you kind of like eat things. And again, the concept of what you consume is also like what you release in a sense. And what's interesting about this is you see them kind of like eating very, very satisfied, taking care of like having just being very restful. And so that results into something that is quote unquote satisfying for them when they push it out. Very similar to how they usually talk about their music lately. But at the same time, like they've been ejected out, and then for this one, what's interesting to me is the way like how the three of them look. Sho is looking very, very much satisfied. Jin is looking a little bit unsure, and then Kishi as well, kind of like hesitating a little bit, but he still went again. And I think, and again, this is just me making interpretations as I go, as I'm watching this, but it also speaks to how it is when you release something out into the world. You know, I mean, toilet humor aside, using that in terms of when you release something out into the world, and then you can either feel very satisfied, similar to how Sho is looking here, or also kind of like be feeling unsure, a little bit worried, thinking if you might have to like redo it again, go back a little bit, or if you're completely unsure but you're still just gonna run out and say, okay, that's finished, let's just go with it. And I feel like they kind of like encapsulate that particular vibe in this ending. Like, see, Sho was just really happy. Jin was kind of like, and then Kisha was like, okay, let's just run with it. And the video ends there. So again, so interesting. Again, I thank you, Kazafire, for the amazing choreography, and at the same time, thank you to everyone who contributed to this very, very, very visually stimulating music video. It's just kind of like a very smart and interesting play into, you know, the whole concept of digestion, and at the same time how that is a metaphor for, again, creating something or consuming something and then creating something out of it. If we go back a little bit to just the beginning of the video, again, this is what I'm saying about the aspect ratio. So aspect ratios in film in general, or like the concept of filming something and directing something, usually has to do with how the director or the artist wants to convey something about the scene. So it kind of like it also is part of the way that the entire video is being presented. Changing the aspect ratio can mean putting emphasis in certain scenes, and then for other scenes it's kind of like the main storyline of it all. And then sometimes it also, because it is very visual, also affects the way how we perceive, you know, entering a scene or exiting a scene, or very similar to how transitions are. So to me, it's very interesting that they've used different aspect ratios for this music video as well. And it really adds a lot more layers to, again, just a presentation of the music video in general. And again, in terms of the colors, in terms of the costuming and everything. Which again, let's revert back a little bit to this. So again, the contrast of, you know, the colors that they've used here as compared to like their dancing costume. And again, there's other costume that they have, they look a little bit more kind of like nerdy and funny. It plays into like the different sides of Number I as well. They have a very colorful, you know, very kind of like quirky, campy side to them, which they've displayed in previous music videos as well. They have kind of like their serious, more crisp type of vibe to them, which is usually shown in their choreography as well as the messaging of their songs. And the kind of like the nerdy side of things, where they're also unafraid to make fun of themselves or to also kind of like laugh with the audience when it comes to these kind of like comedic skits, which is part of who they are as artists as well. It's something that is pretty common with the way that they play into quirky outfits from GOAT. And then we also get introduced to the skits in Bon. With Inazuma, you know, we kind of like enter this otherworldly music video game-ish type of sequence for them. God Eye is a little bit more artistic in a sense that, again, it plays into more filming, directorial techniques and all that. And seeing that this song is produced by all three of them, there's no kind of like main producer for this, all those styles kind of like mesh together. And that's why the payoff from all the previously produced songs that they've had kind of like results to this. So again, it's very much a similar kind of like play into what they're trying to deliver. The more that they consume and learn about, you know, what their music is about and what do they like in terms of styling for their music videos or just a vibe of it, a concept, the more it results to stuff like this, where it's just super creative, visually stimulating. And again, something that might not be suitable or easily consumable to other people, especially first-time people who are watching their videos, but there's just something about it that you feel like you want to go back to be able to understand at least an inch of what they're thinking in terms of releasing something like this. And again, it's just so risky for an artist to kind of like play into toilet humor as well as kind of like part of a concept, because there's only, again, so much that you can do for it to border into being unclassy or anything like that. But because of the way that they presented it, again, with the choreography, with the play in the costumes, with just the general messaging of the song and how that ties in together with the concept of, again, digestion and all these things, and what that is outside of that like typical metaphor that I just mentioned, then it kind of like is, and again, it's not something that's surprising because again, they've delivered something like this before. So yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a completely like interesting discussion overall, at least for me, simply because there's just so many things about this that plays into the element of film, of direction, of just concepts in general that I absolutely really like. Again, that song in itself and the music video in itself is something that is so visually stimulating to me. And I really love that about them. They always keep fans guessing and you just never know what they come out with. And I just absolutely love this. And I'm so excited for the album. And I wish they released like a dance performance video or like a choreography video for this, because I was so in love with like the full choreography of this that they've released in that they've shown in CDTV. So yeah. What are your thoughts about this? What are your thoughts about this music video? What are your thoughts about like the album in general? Any kind of like picks even before you've heard the songs from the album? Let's talk it out down in the comments below as usual. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon in a new one. Bye!